Hello, I'm Nick Taylor, and I work in the product marketing team here at Brandwatch. Of course, I say here, I'm obviously in a flat in North London, and I'm sure that many of you are in a similar situation watching this. That's very pertinent to the theme of what I wanted to talk about today, which is adapting to a time of accelerated change with digital consumer intelligence. So just 4 years ago, I had no children. I commuted to work every day, and fast forward to today, where I'm giving a presentation from my kitchen table, which is covered in Chupa Chups lollipops. So my purchase behavior as a consumer has changed dramatically over the years and even in the last few months. So how do we understand consumers in this modern world? So I'm going to talk about four things. First of all, how we can use analysis of online data to supplement traditional research methods, especially in a time like now. And I'm going to talk about how we make research more agile in a fast changing world. We're also going to look at how our customers employ text analysis on other types of data, for example, to discover hidden insights in survey data, and how they connect those qualitative insights that they gather to the decision makers that they need to get them in front of. So first of all, what is digital consumer intelligence? Brandwatch is a digital consumer intelligence company, and we offer data and analysis and reporting of a whole host of online sources, such as social data, forums, blogs, and news, and connect that data as well with first-party data that our customers can upload into the platform. We have over 2,000 customers around the world who do remarkable work with the kind of data that we have. And I'm going to hopefully go through some interesting case examples of how those customers are using Brandwatch today. Today, we live in a digital world where change happens very quickly. Direct-to-consumer competition can turn whole markets on their head in a matter of months. Technology is changing at an exponential rate. And well-established brands are finding that they have to adapt and change to evolving consumer demands faster than ever before. In 2021, obviously, that change is being accelerated even more. We live in a very turbulent social political time of change. We live in a time where the decisions and the actions that we're taking are having a more and more immediate effect on the resources and the state of the planet that we live in. And of course, we're coming out of, or hopefully coming out of very soon, a global pandemic that has completely turned our lives on their heads in terms of working life, but also daily life and business and technology. So in that kind of time of change, digital consumer intelligence enables organizations to adapt by connecting decision makers to strategic insights derived from a combination of real-time online data, as well as customer data and marketing intelligence. So first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about how the kind of analysis that our customers use with social data and online data is able to supplement the traditional research methodologies that they also use. And one great example of this was the agency Thinkers, who were doing a project for their client Best Water Technology, who were entering a new market in Spain. So they used Brandwatch's social data to search geographically for online conversations where consumers were talking about tap water, and specifically looking for consumers that were having negative conversations about the tap water, and understanding not just where they were in the country, but why they were complaining about the tastes of tap water, and understanding the qualitative insight about what the problems were that they could solve with their water filtration products. It had great success, and they found they were also able to then track after the campaign observable shifts in the brand associations. This was a brand that sponsored a Formula One company, and that was all it was known for or talked about, and they managed to change that mentality significantly. And what they were using was unprompted organic conversations. These can come from anywhere, as I said, and they have a few really useful, valuable features to them, this kind of data. First of all, it's highly qualitative, but it's also at an enormous scale. So the wonderful thing about working with this kind of data is that you can benchmark one conversation against the conversations of millions of other people talking about the same thing, or even benchmark a topic against all the other things that are being talked about online. And the other benefit is that these are unfiltered opinions and unsolicited opinions from real consumers. and that they're observable behaviors, as opposed to asking people to articulate themselves what their desires and decisions are, which is particularly useful in a time where people maybe don't know how they're reacting to all the change going on around them. And of course, perhaps the most important, this data is real time, and we can ingest it and analyze it very, very quickly in real time as well. And there's a wealth of historical data to hand. So for example, our research services teams run reports like this all the time, where we look at social panels and audiences online and benchmark them against a control group. So for example, we look at all the conversations and all the things that a group of busy parents, a group I can certainly sympathize and empathize with, and we look at all the things that they talk about. But in order to really draw out insight, we also look at all the conversations of people in the UK and understand what is it that makes parents different. What are the concerns and the thoughts and the behaviors that are specific to them compared to their peers or their compatriots. The real-time nature of this kind of data and the analysis that we can do on it means we can monitor things like intent to purchase within social conversations and look at that not just before and after a campaign, but actually all the way through, looking at how that shifts during the campaign itself. So social data is all about connecting the dots. It connects the dots between what people think, what they say, and what they do. It also can really help us to connect the dots between the traditional research methodologies that we have when we have specific needs. The really important thing when using social data to do this kind of research is to understand its limitations. So we know that a survey allows us to ask very, very specific questions that we have. Social data is not always going to let us do that. People don't talk about everything. They also don't always tell us who they are. And they're entitled to that privacy about who they are as well. But there are lots of questions that can be asked that are very, very useful with this kind of social data or forum data and other sources that we can analyze in the open web. So how do we use that kind of research to fit into and supplement the methodologies when the world is changing so quickly? Here's a great example during the current crisis. Mahaka Radio is one of the largest radio conglomerates in Indonesia. During COVID-19, they were confronted with this assumption that because consumers only really listen to the radio in the car when they're driving, no one would be listening to the radio anymore when they were at home. So what they had to do was to analyze consumer mindsets and entertainment trends in order to try and craft a more compelling radio programming schedule, but also to create convincing pitches to ad buyers that they were getting listenership and they were getting engagement, and people were actually listening from home in ways that they had done differently in the past. So understanding how consumers were behaving, also understanding what their current and their changing needs or desires were for a programming schedule, helped them to achieve some fantastic results, including a 3 times higher engagement from prospective advertisers than they were before. So this kind of analysis is quite unique in the sense that it sits in a nice position between quantitative methods and qualitative methods. Social media allows us to get a little bit of both. And again, the really useful, important thing about working with this kind of data is understanding where its capabilities can fit in and be really, really powerful and useful. We know that social data and analysis is faster and it's cheaper and it's real time. That's fantastic, but it doesn't always answer all the questions that we necessarily need. We need to figure out where the questions are that it can answer. So the useful thing with social research is that we can create panels of people to study that are self-selecting. We can create panels based on what people have said in the past and what they've said about themselves. And we can do that on social, and we can also do that across forums. We can build ethnographic and behavioral research off the back of that. And what's really useful is we don't have to ask a specific question of those social panels. We can have a look at everything that they've ever said online. And we can build Whitespace queries that allow us to discover new themes, new topics that are top of mind for these consumers that we maybe didn't even know we needed to ask about or understand. The other really useful thing with this kind of analysis is the ability to almost instantly run a longitudinal study. So if you discover an interesting trend amongst consumers right now going on, you can then very, very quickly rewind and look at all the available historical data that this same group of people have been talking about over the last 10 or 15 years, and see how has that trend emerged, when did it start to grow, and has it always been consistent over time. We can also use this kind of research to detect shifting trends, and this is where digital consumer intelligence becomes a really, really useful string to your bow as a researcher when things are changing fast. So while social data isn't necessarily going to give us very, very confident conclusions about who people are or answers to specific questions, what it can do is detect shifts very, very soon. So we're able to say something is changing in the consumer behavior and the kinds of consumers that we're interested in or that we want to understand. We now know what it is that we need to drill into deeper and understand over time. So for example, a Whitespace query that our research services teams did for an airline was trying to understand who their business travelers were, which is a very big question. So they built a big social panel looking at a group of people that had identified, or they had identified as business travelers, and understood not just what do they say about flying business class, what do they say about traveling when they're in business class, but what do they talk about, all the time? What interests and what common hobbies do they have? They are able to find that reading was one of the most common shared hobbies by this group of people. And of course, you could make decisions about what kind of reading material you might be able to provide as a service or within your airline. But they found that when they looked at travel specifically, they were able to drill into the actual topics and what people said when they were interested in talking about travel. And they found, for example, that this business travelers audience were really often mostly talking about travel for leisure. So they didn't spend all their time talking about their business trips. They talked about going to the beach. And so they could create a promotion to accumulate miles through business trips that they could then be redeemed as holidays and trips to the beach, which sounds very nice right now. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about employing text analysis to discover hidden insights in survey data. So this case study example is from a car manufacturer, and they were uploading huge amounts of their survey responses, over 85,000 a month. And they fed this data into several custom-built reporting dashboards. And what they were really interested in looking at was not the usual quantitative data within their surveys, which they had quite a good analysis of already. They wanted to look at the open text responses at the end of all of these surveys that they felt like no one was really looking at. Unless they happened to go in and look for a specific issue, no one really had an eye on what all these really useful sources of consumer feedback were. So they ran all of that data through text analysis, and they segmented it to extract the voice of those customers from the open text. They identified not just how often people were talking about the known issues that people would have contacted customer support and therefore triggered a feedback survey. They were able to identify new customer pain points that they hadn't realized were things that people were having trouble with. And also they were able to understand in a more nuanced way how the known issues broke down into subcategories. For example, in this case, they found that people were having trouble with Wi-Fi in the car, and then they found out why they were having trouble with Wi-Fi, and it happened to be on specific moments in renting cars and connecting it to devices. They then were able to optimize their customer care, obviously by understanding, having a better understanding of what those consumers' problems were, but also they were able to optimize the surveys themselves. And this is a really interesting kind of blend of working with the traditional research methodologies of customer experience and analyzing text data in the way that they have, which is that they could improve the questions once they understood new pain points that they had to include in the multiple choice options that they had. And then they were able to actually quantitatively measure those things over time even better. So this previously siloed data was now within this organization reported really widely, including up to a VP and director level. So those kinds of departments were now able to see real insights from this kind of data, alongside the social data that they were also reporting on as well. So the value of being able to use text analysis on survey data includes the automated topic extraction. So this is the kind of technology that we have always built with social data in mind, but it works really nicely, especially with open text survey responses. We can also apply machine learning classification, which is really useful for nuanced conversations where people aren't necessarily dropping in a keyword that you know means they're talking about a specific issue, but you can actually segment responses into things like angry, frustrated, or irrelevant. Just saying thank you for the service. That was I filled in the survey because you've asked me to, but I have nothing to say. Optimizing survey design and content. And again, also detecting shifting trends over time, because once they'd uploaded this survey data, they're able to then monitor the new pain points and the known pain points over time and see whether they're seasonal or whether they would start to change with the initiatives that they put in place. You can also customize the reporting that you do with this kind of survey data analysis and blend it with social data to build a 360-degree view of what is happening in all those different data sources. And what's really useful for this kind of analysis is that they were able to access new topics and verbatims that are incredibly powerful for reporting purposes as soon as they needed to. And if people asked a question of them about what are customers saying about X topic, they were able to go in and quickly pull something out that answered that very, very specific question. And finally, how do some of our customers connect these qualitative insights that they're making with social and online data to the decision makers that they're trying to reach? And a fantastic example of this is our client Nestle. And Nestle's done this by creating a very large scoped morning briefing dashboard. They've tailored it, the team that owns this dashboard have tailored it highly and made it very easy to use. So they have many, many teams now across the organization that can log in and check out what's going on online, on social, on forums every morning. So it contains not just an overview, but also a highly curated set of insights, which they've segmented in lots and lots of different ways so that they can provide the kind of insights that they want for the different sorts of audiences, different people who will log in to look at these morning briefing dashboards. So they've segmented, for example, by panels of people and the audiences that they're specifically interested in, their target audiences, by different topics within their industry and different competitors, by behaviors of the consumers that are consuming their products, and also looking at their marketing performance. And all of this is connected up to a highly customized alerting system, which is looking for specific triggers that people may want to jump in to this dashboard and understand better. And it's all about institutionalizing the insights that Nestle is collecting through the social data analysis that they're doing. And some of the other best practices that we found with our customers that try to institutionalize the work that they do with this kind of data includes presenting it and sharing it in multiple formats. So everything from our big command center display products, Brandwatch Visia, which puts things in nice big screens around the offices, right down to exporting things into a CSV so people can actually look into the data. Also making things audience specific, which Nestle was a great example of, and tailoring the insights and tailoring the reports that they give to the people who are going to consume them. And building something that is self-service, something where people can log in and have a look at it for themselves, which is great. But of course, there's a concern that people might misunderstand or misinterpret data. So they need something where they're carefully maintaining what people are looking at. And another very specific niche example of this is pharma companies that we have, where they need a metrics-only view for people. So they're not looking through potentially legally problematic mentions of people talking about their products. The other great thing about the insights reporting that you can do with social data is it can be very anecdote rich, and lots of verbatim examples that can back up each data point that you share. And one of the other things that's highly useful is making these reporting methods measurable, understanding how many people are consuming the reports that our customers share. So now you know a little bit about how Brandwatch customers use digital consumer intelligence to supplement the work that they do in this strange, crazy, fast-changing time. I hope that was of interest, and I look forward to logging in later on and hearing if you have any questions. I'd be very happy to answer them when I do. Thank you very much, and goodbye.